All right, let's talk about carbon markets. You hear about them all the time. This big, complicated system that's supposed to help save the planet by, well, putting a price on pollution. So today, we're going to demystify the whole thing. Let's dive in.
So you've probably seen this, right? You're buying a bag of coffee or maybe booking a flight, and you see that little label, carbon neutral. And you kind of have to wonder, what does that really mean? How can a company just become carbon neutral? Well, the answer almost always leads us into this fascinating, complex, and yeah, sometimes pretty controversial world of carbon credits. Okay, so to make sense of all this, we're going to break it down into 5 parts. First, we'll look at the 2 main ways to price carbon. Then we'll dive into the voluntary market, figure out what a carbon credit actually is, see how the whole market works, and finally, we'll talk about why any of this really matters.
All right, let's get right into it. First things first, not all carbon markets are the same. In fact, they really fall into 2 completely different buckets, and it all comes down to how they put a price on pollution. And you know, it really just boils down to 2 big ideas. You've got one system that's all about rewarding things that have already been done, and another one that's about giving permission for things that are going to be done. And trust me, understanding that one difference is absolutely crucial to getting the rest of this. Okay, so this table really breaks it down nicely. On one side, you've got baseline and credit. This is the system that creates credits for emission reductions that have already happened. We're going to be talking a lot more about this one today. But on the other side, you have cap and trade. Now, this is a whole different beast. This is what governments use for their big mandatory systems. Think of the EU's emissions trading system. What they do is set a hard limit, a cap, on how much total pollution is allowed from, say, all the heavy industry in the region. Then they issue these things called allowances, which are basically permits to pollute. If a factory cleans up its act and pollutes less than its allowance, great, it can sell its extra permits to another factory that's struggling to meet its target. It's all about creating a market for a limited resource, the right to emit. So that cap and trade system is super important. But for the rest of our time today, we're going to focus on that other model, the baseline and credit system, because that is the engine that drives what's called the voluntary carbon market, or VCM. And the key word there is voluntary. This is where companies and even individuals jump in by choice. So what exactly is the voluntary carbon market? Well, the most important thing to remember is that it's driven by private players. This isn't a government telling a factory it has to buy allowances. No, this is all about private money, from companies, from investors, flowing into projects that are designed to reduce or remove greenhouse gases. And believe me, it's a whole ecosystem. You've got companies on one side looking to buy credits to hit their climate goals. Then you have the project developers, the folks on the ground actually building wind farms or protecting forests. But it doesn't stop there. You've got NGOs, local communities, even governments getting involved. And kind of holding it all together are these groups called carbon standards. You can think of them as the private referees of the game, setting the rules and trying to make sure everyone trusts the system. So that leads to the big question. What is everyone actually buying and selling here? If this market is an economy, what's the currency? Well, that would be the carbon credit. At its heart, it's a pretty simple idea, but it has some really powerful implications. One single carbon credit represents exactly 1 metric ton of carbon dioxide, or its equivalent in other greenhouse gases, that has been stopped from entering the atmosphere, or even pulled right out of it. It's basically a certificate that says 1 ton of climate action happened here. So how does one of these credits get created? Well, it's a whole process. First, you have to figure out a baseline. That's basically the what-if scenario. How much pollution would have happened if we did nothing? Then you actually do the project. Let's say you build a new solar farm to replace a coal plant. After that, a totally independent third-party auditor has to come in and verify, yep, you really did reduce emissions by this much. And only then does one of those carbon standards, like Verra or Gold Standard, issue the official credits for that verified difference. Okay, so now we have these shiny new verified carbon credits. But how do they actually move? How do they get from the solar farm project to the company that wants to buy them? Well, this is where the market part really kicks in. It's a classic supply and demand situation. You've got the supply side, all the people creating and certifying the credits. And then you have the demand side, all the different groups that want to buy them for a whole bunch of different reasons. Let's look at the supply side first. Where are all these credits coming from? Well, some are actually created by government programs, like in places such as Australia or Thailand. But a huge chunk of them come from those big independent standards we keep talking about. Verra and Gold Standard are the heavy hitters there. And you even have credits being generated under big international umbrellas like the Paris Agreement.
And on the demand side, it's just as varied. The really big ticket item is voluntary buyers, corporations making these huge climate commitments. But what's interesting is that these voluntary credits can sometimes cross over into compliance markets. For instance, in Colombia, a company can use them to help pay its carbon tax. The entire international airline industry uses them for its own offsetting program called Corsia, and even whole countries can buy them to help meet their national climate goals.
All right, so we've seen all the moving parts of how this market works, but let's zoom out for a second. What's the point of all this? The so what? Why did we build this complicated system in the first place?
Well, when you strip it all away, this is the fundamental idea. The voluntary carbon market is supposed to act like a giant global pipeline. It's designed to take private money from big companies, from investors, and channel it directly to projects on the ground that are actually fighting climate change.
And if you're a company, this is a pretty powerful tool to have. It's a concrete way you can say you're working towards your climate goals. It's the how behind that carbon neutral sticker on your product. And let's be honest, in a world where customers are really starting to care about this stuff, it's also a big part of building your brands.
And that brings us to the word you hear most often, offsetting. It's the #1 reason these credits get used. The idea is pretty simple, really. A company figures out its own carbon footprint, from its factories or its flights. Then it buys the exact same amount of carbon credits. The goal is to balance the scales. For every ton of pollution they create here, they fund the removal or reduction of 1 ton somewhere else to counteract their own impact.
And that brings us to the single biggest, most important question hanging over this entire industry. We're talking about billions of dollars pouring into these markets. So the challenge is all about integrity. How can we be absolutely sure that every single credit represents a real, permanent, verified ton of carbon taken out of the sky, and not just some creative accounting? The credibility of this entire approach to fighting climate change really hinges on getting that answer right.